Chocolate isn't the answer. Would you mind repeating the question? Hello, this is Pat Coakley. Pod Snacks, Art of the Diet monthly podcast that attempts to discuss the one question that I've had for 10 years. How do I maintain a significant weight loss? I've managed to do it, but it hasn't been a question that I've answered the same way twice in 10 years. All the episodes of the podcast are available on www.artofthediet.com. Hello, it's Pat Coakley, and welcome to Art of the War, Part 2. And as you know, if I could rebrand my Art of the Diet podcast, I would title it Art of War, because that's simply the simplest way for me to understand what this challenge is and has been for the last 10 years of maintaining a significant weight loss. And so this session, which follows on last month's, which was sort of based on a little investigation I did of a, 6th century war book, basically, by someone who is still studied in military colleges as to strategy. And surprisingly, I thought, well, some of this really applies to weight maintenance, not just war. So one of the focuses was strategy and knowing your enemy. And I ran across a couple of articles this month that address that specifically. And I'll leave the links to them on my website, www.artofthediet.com. And this is episode 171. So the first article was in the New Yorker and by Jerome Groopman, who is an MD and has been writing for the New Yorker on all sorts of subjects for years. He's well known, and I've never heard him or read him about a diet or weight. And this article really started out by him acknowledging that he had developed a dependency on his phone that was initially sort of amusing to him and then secondarily sort of alarming, because he's a man, I think, who probably prides himself, as many of us do, as being adults and that we can make choices about our life and we're not addicted to stuff. And he stood back and realized, you know what? I may be all that, but I'm addicted to this phone. So he talked about what science can tell us about habits. And I found it just very helpful at the state I'm in, which I'll go into a little bit. But it's worth reading, and it's worth thinking about wherever you are in your weight maintenance or weight loss state. The other article was in the Scientific American, which I'm trying to expand my reading material, so I started with the Scientific American. Oh, good Lord. I don't know how many articles I'm going to read, but this one I read, and it was about the science of weight loss and what these particular researchers had learned. And I'll link it to my website, but there's a wall for the Scientific American. In other words, they don't let you read even free articles. So I'm just going to tell you the one bit of information that I took away that explains a lot to me as a 74-year-old woman and someone who has for 10 years maintained, a 60-pound weight loss. But a lot of that time it's been white knuckle ride. And this one fact, which I think I theoretically knew, but it was just very helpful to see it stated so simply. And that is that between the ages of 22 and 70, a woman needs 800 less calories a day to maintain her weight. So think about it. 800 calories. What do they suggest is a normal calorie intake for an adult female in her 70s? Probably no more than 17 or 1800, maybe 2000 if we want to be generous. So think of it, 800 less calories in order to maintain. And I said to myself, this is exactly what I've been dealing with. Because the overall arch of my maintaining weight over the years has come down to one thing: eating less. The portions of 10 years ago cannot be the portions of today. And it has nothing to do with exercise, which is the other very interesting point made in this article, that oftentimes we think that exercise is absolutely key to weight loss. And in actual fact, it isn't. It is absolutely key maybe to other physical effects positively on our health and our mental health. But for weight loss, it is not as critical as what you eat and how much you eat. Okay, so those are the two articles, and why they hit me this particular month is that due to some health difficulties, I'm back to hardly any walking for exercise or for mental health. So I'm faced with, okay, you take away 8 or 10,000 steps a day. What do you eat? And the big answer for me is, well, I eat less. Now, I do have to tell you that without exercising, I'm really not as hungry as I would normally be. But the fact of the matter is, I said, if this is going to be a long-term adjustment, something I'm going to have to adjust to, and also maintain a weight loss, I'm going to have to figure this out in some significant way. So I decided that I would have a main meal, but that would be primarily the meal that I would have. Yes, I'd have a small breakfast and a fruit or light combination of protein and fruit at night, but that my main meal would be toward the luncheon time zone. So the concept of 3 squares a day is out, but the quality of the food that I have for that one meal is balanced and nutritious and good and all the things we know we should eat. But I don't stress as much about the portion with that, but I am very aware that I'm going to enjoy this because this is going to be primarily it for the day. And I've been doing it for a couple of weeks, and it does simplify things to realize that if you return, or if I return to my old habits, they are not going to help me. And it's going to make my current situation worse. But there are things one can do to switch habits. And for Dr. Groupman, he mentioned a study, which I think I've talked about here. It happened, I think, in the 60s, where this researcher had a bunch of little kids, like 5 and 6-year-old, and he was trying to test how willpower and whether they could not eat the marshmallow that was put in front of them. And the bottom line of the study was that kids that had the marshmallow visually in front of them maybe lasted 6 seconds before they ate it. And kids that were not shown the marshmallow, but were told they could eat it, and to see how long they could wait before they said they wanted to eat it, these kids could wait much longer than the ones that visually saw the marshmallow. And the bottom line was, and the fun part of Dr. Groupman's article was that he basically said that is the key to willpower. It's not to exercise that muscle of willpower every flipping minute of the day, but it is to eliminate the choices that we have to make on a regular basis. And that, in and of itself, that habit of hiding the marshmallow, he called it, and which I'm calling this episode, assists you and your discipline. And in actual fact, you make it much harder for yourself to continually, daily, weekly, monthly, yearly, say no to the trigger food, say no to that which you know is difficult for you to manage. So I've also done that, in that the trigger foods for me are not coming into the house unless I choose that particular day to buy something. But it won't be there the next day. It won't, whatever's left over won't be in the refrigerator, won't be in the cupboard. So it's not that I say no to everything that would be a trigger food, but when it's in front of me, it's in front of me for a short period of time, and it's not then available. So the reason I think it would be helpful to read the Jerome Groupman article is that he cites some research behind this self-control, and he cites a study about people who scored very high on the self-control questionnaire. And they were trying to understand how they were able to execute this self-control. Was it something inherent to them, or was it outside of themselves, situational factors, or was it just simply sheer fortitude? And the bottom line is that they achieved situational control, paradoxically, not through willpower itself, but by finding ways to take willpower out of the equation. In other words, they spent a lot of their lives hiding the marshmallow. And it wasn't experienced as punitive, but just practical. They simply weren't exhausted every minute trying to make, quote, the right decision or the disciplined decision or the righteous decision. And I thought, that really is true for me. And I guess apparently through these studies borne out that when I simplify my life by not having some of these trigger foods around day after day in various forms, I simply am able to manage the whole portion control and what I eat far easier. And I'm not thinking about it every minute. And for those of you that have families and other people who have tastes that perhaps don't have to conform to yours, I guess I would just suggest that you have a group discussion about what you need in your life and what they need in their life, and maybe they get the stuff outside of the house, okay? And not have it in the house. I don't know, but I know that it's far easier to do it living by yourself than it is with a group of folks, but it's still doable. And I'm sure that these German folks that scored really high on the self-control questionnaire, they weren't all living by themselves. So the part of the article that really made sense to me was in the language that they used. It wasn't this heavy-duty research language. They talked about the central force for eliminating bad habits is something called friction. And what is that? It means if we can make bad habits more inconvenient, then inertia can carry us in the direction of virtue without ever requiring us to be strong. And I laugh and I think of sometimes where I put foods out in the garage because, like in the middle of winter or something, where it would be really sort of a pain in the neck to put on your boots and the coat and everything and go out to the garage. And, something as simple as that can help. And so I think this article applied it to many different things, a decline in smoking, talked about college students that instead of studying on a couch in a dorm with a TV close by, they went to the library instead. They ate better when they removed junk food from the dorm refrigerator. In other words, in every situation where self-control was required, the successful folks with self-control came essentially from covering up the marshmallow in one form or another. So as I start this phase of one main meal a day and a small breakfast and maybe before bed snack, I must say I feel more in control because it's, first off, the meal that I'm having is a balanced one and it's good food and I cook it and it looks good. It's not some dreary looking thing. So I look forward to it. And the fact that your appetite is diminished by not having the activity helps you with this. And what's particularly helpful is not using whatever calories I am going to have on the kind of foods that trigger more of it. So that when you are sated, really, it helps you when you're in a health crunch where you can't do the exercising, just physically you're not up to it. And anxiety hasn't hit you like it hit me last year, where your appetite just leaves you, so you're not at all struggling. I'm in a better spot mentally now than I was last year, thanks to meditation, may I say. I still do that every day. And I think the bottom line is I'm managing more of the related stress that last year really affected my appetite. But we all have our health issues and our challenges and our relationships. It's all a different mix. But those of us who struggle with weight management on some days, and those of us that are on cruise control with it on other days, I bet all of us have a core string of habits that we know work for us. And just as we know that some foods work better for us than others. And there's lots of studies coming out showing that somebody who would be our exact same twin, if they ate what we ate, would either gain or lose weight. But for us, it seems to be a particular food that we metabolize well, we do well with. And you only know that yourself. So we're coming to the age of customized dieting. I think it's, at some point there's going to be some genetic analysis and DNA analysis, and they're going to come up with certain foods that would work better. But we're not there yet. But habit and self-control and how to manage your life so that you're thinking about other things other than food management really depends on hiding that marshmallow. And I hope this is helpful to you, and I hope you read this Groupman article. I think you can get that without signing up for the New Yorker. And I'll list the Scientific American one too, but that is behind a paywall. So over and out for now. Daylight savings, so it's dark, 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 and it's 5:10 p.m. And winter's coming. So see you next month, December. Yikes. For the New Yorker. And I'll list the Scientific American one too, but that is behind a paywall. So over and out for now. Daylight savings, so it's dark, 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 and it's 5:10 p.m. And winter's coming. So see you next month, December. Yikes.